a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal and crypto link in the info box below this video. Most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using stock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on social media. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by The Plain Truth, Sleeping Warrior, Jose, Chocolate Saying, and Arwin. Good to have you all.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Excuse me. Frog in my throat. So just before we went live, you were discussing Dell's show. I didn't quite catch the gist because I was pressing buttons and setting stuff up. So what was the score with Jose? Were you in on there, did you, Jose? You were on Dell's show.
Yeah, I jumped in for a few minutes. West Coast Wisdom, if I'm not mistaken, a lady, she jumped in the show. They were chatting about something, and I said, like, let me just jump in the show to say hi or whatever. Maybe they'll have seen my video and he want to talk about it. I didn't want to bring it up. As soon as I joined West Coast, the lady, she go like, hey, Jose, I seen your video, and it's awesome, it's fantastic, and this, and she was giving me all the props, and I had the biggest smile on the thing, and they're like, I don't know what you guys talking about. Like, what is going on here? So I broke it down for him, and he was cool with it. He said, like, exactly, it's optics, You cherry pick the location. If you do it right, you're going to get all these weird effects,
All I'm going to say, Jose, is the minute she said your name, I saw this big, massive, smiling Chester cat in the background, and I thought, Jose.
Yes, indeed.
Do you refer to you by your full name, Soundly Slayer?
No.
What they did do was they referred to Miles the Liar Davis as Miles the Liar Davis. So shout out to the fact that people's nicknames are being spread, because Miles is a liar. He really, really does tell big, massive pig lies.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to a bit more Miles Davis in due course, as he seems to have Tourette's in terms of his video publishing. Same thing over and over again.
I think what's happening, there's a bit of a wave going on. There's something weird going on, because obviously Simon Dan and his apparent like rise into stardom, like more popular than like Michael Jackson and the Beatles and all that. It seems that there's a couple of them that seem to be getting promoted to death, and it's just bizarre. I don't know if you guys are aware, but Wolfie 60's 20's recent video with the bet at the 100 grand or whatever, 4.3 million views apparently, and I'm like, what the hell?
That's a lot of views.
I have 4.3 million accounts, so I just checked in on all of them.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, that doesn't happen organic, bro. I mean, I don't think. I mean, it's not possible.
I actually think there's something bigger going on. Well, put it this way: we'll know that YouTube are fucking with us, right? If Miles Davis gets a video that goes viral like that, because that just becomes the bottom of the bottom of the bottom.
Yeah, because let's say they share it. Let's say there are groups of ballers or whatever of science and bullshit they call it, and they share it, and there's a couple thousand people there. And they share it in 20 groups of 100,000 people. I mean, not everybody is going to click on that video, really. 2 million people in 20 groups of 100,000 people, that's impossible. It doesn't happen.
Tell you what does happen, though. It does spread the word that Flat Earth is a thing. It raises awareness. That's really cool. I'm just glad that it wasn't me that done it. Come and debunk. Hey, Wolfie, come and debunk how you can have gas pressure next to a vacuum without some kind of membrane, or how you can have gas pressure without a container in the first place. Let's have a look at your demonstration for that and see how many views your video gets.
Yesterday, in the after show, I don't know how long after because I passed out. I fell asleep by the end of the second show. So all of a sudden in my dreams, I heard, Jose, you there? When I woke up, it was Zinder and George Natinuk in the chat and myself. I go like, hey, what's going on, you know? And we chat for a little bit, and George was angry about the video of the light disappearing on the supermarket, of the things disappearing from the bottom up. Oh, he went on, and Zinder was like, but hey, George, but it's a thing, you know. I seen it there, and that's what's making Zinder question, you know, the reality, because it's really a thing. And George was, no, it has to be measured, it has to be 100% by millimeter. And oh man, it was a crazy conversation. He just cannot accept that there are alternative explanations for what we know.
So it's like the next thing you have to do is you have to measure the how straight the floor is, because they all think the floors are curved now. So now you gotta get like a laser or something to
exactly
show them to level it out and make sure that it's level so that they can accept that. And then once you do it on that, who knows what they'll come up with.
Well, the worst thing is now we've had Bendy Light.
Are you sure your level is level?
Yeah, shout out to
You have to prove your level's level.
Belief is a thief. Belief is a Thief responded to my video and said, yeah, those guys aren't going to spend that much money making sure the floor is level. So nice try.
Yeah, well, right. We had Bendy Light, then we had Bendy Water. And are you really telling me that we've now got Bendy Floors? Come on, what kind of world are we living in? Is there not on straight in this world? Come on.
If we ever try to show an example of something happening that they claim is caused by Earth curve, they're going to claim it's caused by Earth curve. Doesn't matter what it is. So it's the same analogy. Them saying the floor's bending is the same as them saying the Earth is bending. It's no different. It's excellent, in fact. It highlights how deluded they actually are. Everything is conforming to this type of obstruction. Not Earth curve. None of these floors are curved. This is nonsense. Of course, anybody with half a brain can recognise that. Generally speaking, floors are pretty flat. And they're about analogous to maybe water with waves on it, or a piece of flat land that's going to have undulations in it. Nothing's perfectly flat, so it doesn't really make any difference. It's perfectly analogous. But we still see things before we reach the floor disappear from bottom up. Now, in their world, that's absolutely and only caused by Earth curve when you're looking through a zoom lens. So when you look through an iPhone lens, the cognitive dissonance kicks in. It's got to be the floor bending. No, sorry.
Everything is curvature.
Everything's curvature, exactly.
What's going on is they don't accept that they don't gonna take that things disappear from the bottom up in a flat surface. The same thing that they do not accept that compression in the long distance, you know, in the bottom of the things is a thing also. Even though it's been proven, it's been evidence, and we can repeat this many times, they don't accept it because it's in any citation, in any optics book, you know.
So here's the thing, right? We've got Conspiracy Cats that's now reciting Ranty Rant stuff, and not only misrepresenting it, he's actually claiming that Ranty stuff that proves that there's optics going on, whatever the optics are, he's reciting it and rewashing it and claiming that he's got ball earth proof, and he's totally misrepresenting what's being presented. Ranty's not trying to show that the earth's curving, you moron. Ranty's showing that things are getting squashed for some reason out of proportion at the very, very bottom of the object.
Not for some reason. I can tell you why. Because there's a more limited angle to the bottom of something than there is to the top of it.
And then Dawn Treader says in chat, it's reflection blur. I've told Jose this. Well, yeah, it might be reflection, but how do you have a reflection on a curved surface? Conspiracy Cats tried to demonstrate that one, and he failed miserably, but still thinks that light follows curved paths. What a moron. You guys are stupid. You're thick. It's embarrassing. Not going to be long before you guys realise and everybody else start following suit. But there's going to be the few diehards that stick it to the very, very bitter end, and we're going to be sat there smiling because you guys are stupid.
Medium transitionless refraction does not bend light. it diffuses it. Very simple.
Yeah, you're all a bunch of morons. It's embarrassing. So come on, someone demonstrate how we can have the gas pressure without a container in the first place. And we don't want to hear the explanation about gravity because we all know that you can't prove a little bit of bending in space-time, right? And even if it was Newtonian principles of gravity, let's see the demonstration that shows that it's true. We all know that you can't do it, yet you all believe it anyway. So not only have you got an assumption based on assumption or a lovely story based on a lovely story, you're all in denial. Literally, it's embarrassing to even have to debate you guys at the moment. You're just ridiculous. Oh, and the rumpus. You need to look up what the definition of debate is. It's where you both take turns. You listen, you speak, you take turns, and you listen again. And that's how it goes.
No, that's not
Rumpus
what he's here for.
Embarrassment.
Look at his name. What does his name mean, Anthony? What does rumpus mean?
A row or isn't it a row or a heated debate?
No, it means a disruption.
A disruption, that's right.
Right. So he's here to disrupt.
Yeah.
I've half a mind to just not let him join anymore because all he does is disrupt the show. That's his purpose.
I agree. Just kick him. I think we should just literally kick him. And to be honest, I think P. Mars needs to be kicked on site as well because although he can be normal, there's no need for him to be the dick. Why are you here if you're going to be a dick? We don't need you here. Go away. I think we should just kick P. Mars and Rumpus on site in future because I don't think either of them do anything.
Well, no, Rumpus definitely does do something. He's their last line of defence. So all he did on yesterday's shows was completely obfuscate the point, and the way he did it was to continually assert his point, ignore every single address and redress and rebuttal to his points, ignore any points we raised to counter his points, and whenever we tried to counter or rebut any of his points, claim that we were interrupting him while he talked, and I mean literally 95% of the time.
Reading Ute's comment there, Ute says, Mark Taylor on show 59 crying because a concrete block was dropped on a tanker and Riley didn't mention it when it didn't even need mentioning. Taylor crying, claiming Riley is a liar and so on. What a wanker. Shout out to Ute.
Yeah.
I think what we need to do, Nathan.
Last line of defence, that's what I'd describe him as. You know, we're hammering this point home at the moment that using whole numbers, feet and inches, meters, is the way of taking you out of a perspective view. You know, a 10-foot wall's a 10-foot wall regardless of the distance. It's always going to remain at that absolute size, and that's what they do. They keep things at absolute sizes and make their reference to those absolute sizes. And then the effect that you actually see of things getting smaller in the distance, perspective, they then call curvature. That's the trick. And when they represent it graphically, they put you in a side view. So you see the side of the person who's taking the picture's head, along with the thing they're taking a picture of, on the left and right-hand side of the image. So you have an orthographic representation. Whole numbers and an orthographic representation. You don't even have to present the orthographic representation. You can just misrepresent it with the whole numbers. So that's what they do. You'll see this mountain is this number of meters. This mountain is this number of feet. It's like, oh, really? Well, what about the comparison to the things around it? Because the comparison is done in relative sizes, angular sizes, not in whole numbers. Because in relative terms, a 10-foot wall is not 10 foot when you get further away from it. Its angular size, the relative size in relation to other things in the frame of that picture, will change with distance. It will get smaller. But they ignore that. They use the whole numbers, and that's how that's how the magic trick works. That is the magic trick. So last line of defence to us hammering that point home is for Rumpus to come in and just reassert his point over and over again, that you don't need to account for perspective. And if you're going to draw this, are you telling me you can't draw it with the person that's taking the opposite? Yes, you can, but it's not representative of reality. It's only half the job, as Adam Meakin put it. It's only doing half the maths. It's only accounting for where things should be on the ball. It then ignores how you've actually taken the picture, the perspective and relative sizes of things. I don't know who's feeding back, but somebody's got their speakers up a bit too loud.
Usually Travis.
Autographic view are...
It's not me. I'm just sitting on my couch, yo.
Could be
It's
Anthony.
always you that feeds back.
It could be you.
Autographic view is destined to not be used for a viewing function. It's only to get actual sizes for oversight assistance It's not meant to be used as a foundation to calculate sight. It's very simple. It's not that. That's not what it was made for. So every time they do this, they just abuse something. It's ridiculous.
Nathan, I want to present something if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Somebody told me, I can't remember who it was, but somebody told me that there was it was Adam Meakin. Adam Meakin told me that there was an interesting comment made by Conspiracy Cats. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to find the video before I share it because I can't remember where it is. Come on. I think this is it. No, it's not that one. I should have got this video ready beforehand, shouldn't I? I'll come back to you in a minute. Ah, there it is.
I was just trying to figure out who's causing the feedback. I think it might be Travis. Sorry, Travis, it might have been you. Just turn your phone down.
I'm muted, guys. I was muted.
I muted you.
I don't.
Anyway, it's not that important. It was only a small irritation in sound.
A bit like PMAS. Right, so Conspiracy Cats. Are we on?
No. Yes.
Conspiracy Cats, talking to you, my friend. You said in the hangout that you did with the debate with Thrive, you said that you and I were planning on going up to St. Bees to do the observation of the Isle of Man Lighthouse. And you said that if we were able to repeat it, then you would... I don't know what you actually said, but it was just waffle. I know that you're not going to do whatever it was that you said. But here's the thing. I'm going to just play this while I talk through it. So this is taken from the car park, which is only about 35, maybe 40 feet, depending on the height of the tide. And in the corner of the car park, there's a little post that I just put my camera on, basically to give it some kind of stability so I don't get a ranty horizon. And I can zoom in right up to the lighthouse, and I can see it. Now, at this height, the height's about 35 feet, right? The distance is 31 miles. So if you do your little curvature calculator, you will see that 35 feet over 31 miles, there ain't no hell chance that this is likely to be seen. You cannot see it. Now, the problem is, I'll try and pause it at the relevant point, but the problem is that when I took the original picture, there it is, from the top of the hill, Conspiracy Cats, I was able, this is the composite that Ranty took. Now, there was massive arguments about what the elevation was, the actual elevation, and it turns out it was about 100 feet. At the absolute worst, 115 feet above actual water. And even then, you only just about brought back the tippy tops of the roof tiles. But that was enough for them to claim that this was explained. So basically, the challenge was go down and get it from lower down. Now, if it's supposed to be a sphere, the observer height is really, really, really important because you can't get these things because of the curve. Now, from 100 odd feet, this is what I actually got at the top. But when I came down to the bottom and I got onto the car park, which you've just seen me taking the picture from, we're able to see this image. And I'm going to pause it on screen because you can see that there's this little island, this little village, and that represents this village here. And then you can see the lighthouse, and there's a little bit of a difference in the distance because I'm parallaxed a little bit. There's the lighthouse. It's the exact same picture. Okay, the weather's slightly different. But the point is it's the same image. We're seeing the same amount of this bandedness underneath it. And you can see there even looks like there's a little bit of sky on that somehow. But my point is that we see the lighthouse, and it's about the same size as what it was the last time I saw it. And it just requires a really good visibility day. Now, you don't always get really good visibility. Trust me, I've spent a lot of time there, and it doesn't always come across. Most of the time, I can't even see any of the island, let alone most of it. But how is it possible that we can see that much of the lighthouse from at the top of the hill, which we should only see the roof tiles at the exact worst moment? The roof tiles is all we should see, but how is it we can see that? But then from much lower down, at about 30 feet, we can see that. If observer height is so critical, how's that possible? So what I'll do is I'll just play I'll keep the clip.
I know your questions were rhetorical or aimed at Conspiracy Cats, but I'm going to answer them. So we see it because it's there. There it is. We see it. There is no explanation required, so there's no need to ask the question. I know you're going to get into the maths, but what we should or should not see is not based on the maths. that the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator that automatically assumes we're on a ball says we should or should not see. That's nonsense. That's the first point. Second point is these values, the one in highlight by Anthony, 65 meters, is a value we do not get to see. We get to see things in relative sizes based on their angles. So by using these numbers, we are essentially inside elevation, orthographic view, whatever you want to call it, 90 degrees adjacent. So to get these numbers, you need to see Anthony's head and the lighthouse in the same frame, which is not what we are looking at. This is how they have done the trick in the first place, to hijack perspective and call it curvature, place you 90 degrees and give you whole numbers. So while Anthony's fine to beg the question and have this tete-a-tete with conspiracy cats, I want to make it absolutely clear that these numbers, these whole numbers, are meaningless in terms of the relative view that you get through your eyeballs or through a camera lens, because it is relative to the angle of view and the distance, the angular size relation of things based on their height and angle, how wide your angle is to those things. So for example, the village on the left has got pretty much the same wide angle of view lower down. It's higher than Anthony is. We're on a flat plane and he's looking up at it, and his angle of view to the village above the lighthouse doesn't really change as he lowers his elevation. The lighthouse, on the other hand, is right in that critical angle. He's got the most limited of limited angle to that lighthouse at this elevation. He can still see it. There it is. No explanation required for why he sees it. He does see it. No explanation needed. He sees it because it's there. However, when using the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator and asserting that's what we should or should not see, outrageous, then they will use whole numbers. How high is the lighthouse in feet and inches or meters, ignoring the angular relationships of things? Sorry, Anthony, I've completely hijacked your point. You go ahead and beg the question, my friend.
No, it's right. At the end of the day, the size of this thing, when we see it from 31 miles away, is not 200 feet. It's perspective. We see it much smaller. We see it as a couple of pixels on the horizon. But the problem is, if the Earth's sphere, right, it's got to reduce in size over that distance down to a couple of pixels, but then it's got to drop behind the curve. Now, if something's that size on a flat plane and then drops behind the curve, it's going to be gone because of the curve. So it's the impact or the relationship between the angular size and the curve. So it kills everything. Anything that's like more than 20, 30 miles away, it kills pretty much everything unless it's a mountain you're looking at. And then it becomes a little bit like difficult to interpret. Hence why Miles Delia Davis is presenting mountains. But if I show that thing there is the same as that thing there, and the elevations were completely different, if the observer height is so critical, A, they shouldn't be the same image at different heights, and B, this thing is so small, it should drop behind the curve. This is not 210 feet when it drops behind the curve. It's the reduction from 210 feet at that distance and then drop it behind the curve. And it's never going to get seen. And that's why this is all complete nonsense. And it's difficult to portray it because unless you understand it and you've been through the battles that we've had on this Isle of Man stuff, it's difficult to portray it. But the simple answer is this: orthographic is what they're using to destroy and misrepresent and to create the perception that things are being distorted from the bottom up. And it's all to do with the angle, the angular size, and how much the resolution changes over distance. But it's complete codswallop. And conspiracy cats, you need to explain this. Explain how this is possible, what you're looking at on screen right now. This cannot happen on a sphere. It can't be the same image from the same height. It can't be the same amount. It's gone. It's so far gone. It's unreal. You're a joke, conspiracy cats. I can't understand how you can maintain your position. I'm done.
Yeah, the only validity they can lend to their position is to misrepresent our position by using these values in whole numbers and excluding perspective. You don't see things in meters and feet. You see them in radians or arc degrees or an angle. To put it in the most layman's terms, you get an angle of view. And if you're standing right next to a building, you've got a massive angle. You've got to literally tip your head up to incorporate the mass of the angle that you've got to that building. And guess what? As it gets further away, that angle reduces. But on their maths, that building, let's say it's 100 feet high, is always 100 feet high. Doesn't make any difference how far it is away. It's still 100 feet in the mathematics. But that's because it's representing it as a whole number to exclude the very fact that it gets smaller into the distance. Its angle reduces. Yeah, it's still a 100-foot building. That's absolutely correct to assert. But its angular size is very different depending on how far away you are from it. And that changes also given elevation, depending on how wide your angle of view is, the angle of attack. The lower you go to something, the more narrow the angle. Therefore, you're more likely to lose it quicker as it gets further away at the bottom. So you lose things from bottom up as well, based on the angle. It's all about your angular resolution. And Anthony says it's about the distance and how much zoom. Well, that's your diffraction limit, the angular resolution limit, the point at which that 1 pixel goes to no pixels because of the angle. Well, none of this is accounted for when you're talking about things in feet and inches, and that's how they misrepresent the world. That's how they've excluded perspective, and people like Rumpus can come along and say, that's fine. We're making a drawing of the world. No, we've got a photo. We don't need to make any drawings. But if you're going to make a drawing of the world, no, we're not going to. Well, I am, because I want to misrepresent what you say a flat earth is. Because on a flat earth, everything should remain the same size in feet and inches. But on my world, stuff gets smaller into the distance. And that's because of Earth curve. Well, what about perspective? You don't need it. Look, we're inside elevation and we're talking about feet and inches. They don't change ever. All right, well, the angle does. That's where they've performed this trick. That's how they've hijacked your world and reality and excluded perspective from it. Every time you're looking at some 10-foot wall, you're always calling it a 10-foot wall. Well, what about the angular relationship to that wall? You can't even see that wall if it was on the Isle of Man by that lighthouse. It's too small to see. The angular resolution of the camera isn't big enough to resolve it, so it's gone completely. But they won't have it. It's like a person. If there was a person stood on the Isle of Man, why is it you can't see any of the people? Why is that? Are they too low to the horizon, so their angle's too... No, they're just too small to see. You can't resolve things that are less than 1 pixel of the camera's resolution limit. So that's why you don't see any people on the island. It's not because they're not there. They're just too small to see. Even if they were stood on the top of the mountain. Amazing that. There's an angular resolution to everything in your picture. And the effects are the same. It doesn't matter what it is. It will still reach and breach the angular resolution limit. Diffract like anything. That's why these lights that people are lowering on the floor disappear from bottom up. That's the diffraction limit. The angular resolution limit. That's what you get from a camera. Nothing to do with Earth curve. All completely ignored when you use these full whole numbers of feet and inches. None of it's taken into account. That's why people like George Netanyahu go nuts. Because it can't be taken into account if you've got a worldview that you live on a ball, when the Earth is obviously and observably flat.
I'll just call it by its catchy term that we name it, just because they get triggered just for the fun. So it's the angle of attack. Boom.
Nathan, can I give a Rumpus response? It'll take just 1 minute.
Going. Go ahead.
Right. Nathan, you're an utter moron. You don't understand perspective. You don't know how the calculations work. You're making a fool of yourself. We do take into account a perspective in the curvature calculator. What we do is first we determine the relative height using the R-based system, of course, which we are allowed to presume, and then afterward we apply the perspective calculations. That's how it works.
Well, that would be a lie, because afterwards isn't what we get presented. We get presented the curve calculator. Feel free to go back to any of the debates about the Isle of Man and see how many times they did a perspective conversion and present it after the facts. No, they replaced the perspective with Earth curve from the maths in the calculator. That's all they do.
We just used the orthographic view in this ball to basically show you what you're seeing into a representation, and then you apply the perspective calculations, and then you can see just like in the ball picture, it's down. It's like that. It's very similar.
Spot on. Well argued, Darwin. Exactly. So they hijack perspective. So when you've got a picture like this on screen, you're told that you need to remove yourself from the view, have the side of your own head in the picture to analyse it. Because that way, excluding all perspective, the thing that actually occurs, the thing dropping into the distance, getting smaller into the distance, they can assert that as Earth curve. especially when the angle of attack, shout out Jose, when the angle of attack gets so limited.
The Rumpus in chat apparently agrees with me.
I love how you put it out in sarcastic terms. Rumpus just blatantly agrees with you, like that's in any way reasonable. I love it. Now, when we study a picture, we can just study the picture. We don't need to remove ourselves from the observation and see the side of our own head. That's not necessary. It's only required by the globe heads to misrepresent the world. That's why they do it. Same applies to using whole numbers. That's why they do it. They can't not do that.
Oh yeah.
So apparently,
Got you by the balls.
Rumpus has changed it from the body of science to the body of human knowledge.
Oh right. So it's the body of human knowledge.
I was about to ask because I'm so curious to see how this body of science looks. I asked in the chat if it has like an Instagram or Facebook or something. I really want to see if it's he or she or how it looks. What is the body of science?
He switched it up for 2019, so it's the body of human knowledge now.
Does he not also realise that's another reification fallacy? That's just still a reification fallacy. It makes no difference.
That's ridiculous, man. Hilarious.
Got reification fallacy Tourette's. Can't help himself.
Shout out to the gorgeous Karen B in chat.
Bit thin on the ground with ballers at the moment.
Yeah, but I noticed that when Roxanne, the globalist denier, came in, it's amazing how they all flooded in then, wasn't it? And we gave the opportunity to the Rumpus, who did nothing but be rude and obfuscate and speak over and basically make himself look an absolute retard. And really, he should have been a gentleman, and he couldn't even do it. So I wonder why that would be, Rumpus. You can't even be a gentleman to a girl. You have to do it all over again with the same thing, same tactics, same MO. It's disgusting, Rumpus. You're an embarrassment.
I have a question for Rumpus, actually. You can answer it in chat. Do you think that the diffraction that we've been talking about, the optical slant effect that I like to call it, you don't like that word, so you don't have to use it, but the optical effect of looking past a flat surface and it will obscure things in it behind it. You think that is science fiction, Rumpus? Do you think that it's not what we're saying it is, despite anyone can demonstrate it to themselves? We just made it up. It's not real. Do you think that?
Well, the Rumpus answers. I want to give a shout out to Musician for Truth. He joins the show every once in a while. He's very quiet when he joins the show. He called to the Hori Shit Show. I think it was last night or the night before. And he's working in a project on a presentation for the Riley's criteria and the Aries diffraction and all this stuff. So he's very interested in this. He's been working for a little while, and he's almost ready to make a video and a presentation on it. So I'm looking forward to see it.
Cool. Rumpus says that we made it all up and we don't know what diffraction is. So enlighten us. What is diffraction?
Actually, don't enlighten us, because everything that comes out your mouth, Rumpus, is just hate. That's basically.
I'm just wondering, like, how does he fit the concept in?
Who cares what he thinks? I don't care what Rumpus thinks anymore. And Rumpus in future, mate, every time you come on, I'm going to auto kick you. Because you can't have a discussion. You can't have a debate. You claim that you're a victim. You're not. You're a dick. It's embarrassing. You and P Miles are just scum.
Don't kick him right away. It's funny for like 2 minutes.
There's no benefit. Shut up. Thank you.
See, even he disagrees.
Don't talk to Arwen like that.
It's difficult to tell the difference between the two, isn't it?
Right.
So just as a brief explanation, the diffraction limit, it would be also accurately described as the angular resolution limit. And I've given this dumbed down example a few times. So if you've got a house fly and you back away from that house fly, eventually in your field of view, that house fly will become maybe 2 pixels or 3 pixels in your view because you've backed away from it. Eventually it will then get even smaller, maybe 1 pixel in your view of the camera. And then when you back away a bit further, you reach the diffraction limit. Now this is where some pretty crazy stuff goes on. Things split in half, for example, in terms of what you see. Now, Travis demonstrated this, and I'll probably click along to that video in a moment, or we'll get to it. I'll just leave this playlist to play out. But it's caught by Travis when he raises and lowers his camera in a supermarket, and as he gets to that limit, the light splits in two and then disappears, precisely as described in the Rayleigh criterion. So feel free to do a Google search of the Rayleigh criterion. We used to describe it as Airy's diffraction, equally valid. Why you don't get the Astronomer Royale's description of it, it is beyond me, I don't know, but Rayleigh criterion certainly will get you to the description of this. And in essence, that's what happens at the limit of your camera when you get down to what you can't resolve anymore. And it's the same, as I say, across the whole image. But when you're looking across a flat surface, you have an induced effect because the angle that you are looking past is more reduced than the angle to anything above the line of the horizontal on your camera. Therefore, you have a wider angle of view to stuff above the midpoint and a smaller angle of view to anything below it, getting more and more small, like Jaren is demonstrating here. As you raise and lower the camera, you get the effect of a wider angle as you raise, and he's pointing at the same thing I am. So yeah, you can see this white block. Let's make it a little bit bigger for the audience's benefit. Oh, I'll get bigger. There we go. And as he lowers the camera, his angle of view to this, which is in obviously the lowest part of the extremity of his view, gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Now he's doing this with an iPhone, and because the iPhone's got a much smaller hole for the light to go through, you get this effect much quicker over a much shorter distance. Now we're normally seeing this effect, you can see it getting squashed, getting smaller as he lowers the camera, and then eventually disappearing completely as he gets to the bottom. So this effect is down to the reduction in angle. That's what's causing this. Now, I get a load of crap from John when I say causing it, because the angle doesn't cause anything. It's not a cause and effect relationship. But that's the only effective way I can describe and detail what's happening. The angle becomes more limited as you lower the camera. Therefore, things get more squashed. It's the same effect as pushing something out into the distance further. That would have the effect of limiting the angle also. So closer to the bottom, you've got stuff getting more squashed, like it was getting further into the distance, just by lowering your camera, because of the limitation that causes to the view of something, given that you've got a surface to look over. So you've got a very limited angle of view, and that gets worse as he lowers. Simple. They won't accept this. George Netting will never accept this in a million billion years, because it defies what he expects. He expects that what happens as you raise and lower is the curve of the Earth is less in the way. Well, no, that presupposition of an Earth curve using a radius value that you insert and then represent the world in a side elevation or an orthographic view to use whole numbers, that's not our world. This is real world. It's just recordings from an iPhone. It's about as real world as you can get. When next time you see a audience member, next time you see a representation with a side elevation and you can see the side of the person taking the picture's head, then ask the person who's presenting the evidence, undoubtedly a globe head, where's this person's head in the picture? So this, for example, where's Jaren's head? Well, you can't see it. Obviously, he's taking the picture. Same with the camera. Why can't we see the camera? Well, because it's taking the picture. But every single time they misrepresent it and say, well, this thing in the distance is 3 foot high and blah, 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 you'll see the side of Jaren's head taking the picture. And then it'll be represented in meters and feet, and you won't get any of the angular relationships from that information. That's how they misrepresent it.
Saw a really good video on Facebook before. I don't really pay attention to Facebook, but basically what it was an off-duty cop, and he was in a convenience store.
Oh, I've got a sniper joining. Richard Henner. Can somebody inject him out the back chat? Hopefully Armin's paying attention. If not, we'll have a new hangout shortly. A protracted silence, and there they go.
You're still good?
Nah, Sniper's got half the show. I'm going to have to republish the Hangout link, I'm afraid, guys, so it's a bye-bye from me for a few minutes. Welcome to the show. Hopefully this will just be the work of but a moment for the audience members. My apologies for the slight delay, and I do mean slight. Clearly something we were saying was displeasing somebody. Excellent stuff. Okay, so hopefully we'll have a few guests rejoin us in just a moment. Publish the link out in Skype if you're watching this and you are listening to the show on the actual feed. I've just stuck the link out in Skype, so hopefully we'll get a few people join us. Hey, Anthony.
I think my back chat was stuck. I saw him join the main hangout and he didn't join the back chat, so I couldn't do anything about it.
Hey,
I guess my back chat had froze.
Not to worry.
Trying to reopen it. Such a fickle little thing, this back chat thing.
Yeah, some days they'll win the battle, some days they won't, but it ultimately only causes a mild disruption. So I would say within 5 minutes of that happening, we'll have the same lineup of guests. You know, the link's been open since the beginning of the show and we've had no ballers join, and the only one that has decided to snipe us. So we will literally end up with exactly the same guest list within 5 minutes.
Yeah, he was just a little bit too quick for me.
Yeah.
Oh, I almost had him, but...
Don't worry about it. Don't let it phase you in the slightest.
Travis, you're definitely feeding back now, dude.
Yeah, now I am. Thanks.
No worries. Yeah, so let me tell you this story, right? CCTV from inside a liquor store, and an off-duty cop's approaching from behind. The guy at the front that's being served is a thief. And what happens is, whilst the cashier is doing something with the till and he's not paying attention to what's happening right under his nose, the guy literally swipes something that's on the counter. Basically, it's in his peripheral view, but he's concentrating on what he's doing. So he doesn't realize that he's just been swiped. But the cop behind immediately realizes what's happened, and he says that the cop pulls his gun on him, right? Which is a bit of an overreaction, but nonetheless, he's stealing. So the cop says to him, he says, put that back. And he says, well, I've just paid for it. Now, he was paying for goods, but he hadn't paid for this goods. And basically what had happened was the cop had seen this, right? And then he challenged the store clerk and he said, has he paid for that? And the store clerk said, yeah. And he says, are you sure? Now, he hadn't paid for it. It's clearly obvious that he hadn't paid for it. He'd swiped it. But it was bizarre how the store clerk basically covered for him because, well, I don't know what reason, but maybe he did make an innocent mistake, or maybe he just didn't want the confrontation and the fallout. But he hadn't paid for this goods, and if I can find the clip, I'll show it to everybody. But it's like the comparisons to the ballers is unreal. They'll get Miles Davis lying through his back teeth, and they'll just turn a blind eye to it and just ignore it. Yeah, if I don't say the exact elevation with what direction the wind was flowing and where my compass was and all that kind of nonsense, I'm the liar. And it's just bizarre how they just can't see it. And this guy couldn't see it either. Embarrassing. You ballers are all like this cashier. If we can find the clip and play it, and you'll just be gobsmacked at what actually happens. It's crazy.
I think the description's good enough if I'm honest, Anthony. I don't want to risk a copyright strike just for that kind of an example. But there we go. Aww.
Jose.
Hey.
Hey, Jose. I know Ranty's hopefully going to join us by the end of the next show. Out and about doing some photography at the moment. was very keen to phone me up to explain that he'd debunked Miles Davis again. There was another issue, and I was like, look, Ranty, this is riddled, you know. Go and get your imagery, go and get your photography, you know, move on. I know he's done 25, 30 videos on this same crappy picture, or whatever, but it's just, you know, don't worry about it, it's riddled. But he wants to get right in there. He's like you about 2 or 3 months ago, Anthony. He wants to get right in there, beg the question alongside him and show how it works from within the fallacy.
Look at the curve.
Yeah, but let's be clear. I only do it because I understand that Nathan realizes that I'm entertaining the lie. Nathan doesn't want to entertain the lie, but I quite like dabbling in it and seeing what the arguments are, because I realize that you can often beat them at their own game. You just got to look for where the sneaky bit is, and it's full of it. Nathan just says, no, we won't be doing that.
And I'm interested in the mental gymnastics that's actually part of the process, because that's also a part of it.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated by it. Some people are really good at it, and they can actually fool themselves, despite being relatively smart. It's fascinating to behold. It's true delusion.
Yeah. And a lot of it's deception as well as delusion. Aminoko Stone says...
deception is part of the strategy, but that is not part of their delusion. Their delusion is what keeps them on track and what keeps providing them the energy to persist, to keep on going. But the deception is, yeah, they go anywhere. They feel like they are allowed to do anything to accomplish their goals, to make people believe, to prove it. To prove it is basically for them to make people believe.
Aminoko Stone says, Sleeping Warrior, just for your information, when you say ballers, you are referring to the rest of humanity. Everyone except a silly bunch of fundamentalists. Nice to be alone, eh? Actually, no. I'm referring to the dickheads in this chat that claim to be a ball earther. Because all the real ball earthers are wandering around aimlessly in their world, oblivious to the fact that this discussion even exists. Yet, you guys think that you're the majority. No. There's only a handful of you morons that are in here that are trying to control the show. But we realise that you're trying to control the show. Oh, by the way, shout out to Speaker's Corner in London. Apparently on the, I think it's on the last Sunday of every month. Might be wrong, don't shoot me. They have the Speaker's Corner. I think it's every Sunday. I'm not entirely sure, but I know there's a group of flat earthers on the way down there right now to rally their troops up in and around the Speaker's Corner. So shout out to those that are doing that. Can't wait to watch that live hangout. Woohoo!
A plug for my own show.
Beautiful. Look at that, beautiful. How that light disappears.
Who's made this video? It's awesome.
Jose Soundly Slayer JG Gonzalez. Boom.
Yours was the original and best, Jose, but unfortunately, Travis did it better than you. So he just managed to lower the camera that much slower. So whereas you raised the camera and lowered the camera to get the effect, what Travis did by raising and lowering the torch very slowly, I know you did that on your first one, but because he did it that much more slowly, you got to see the light split into two.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I'm planning on doing this in the next couple of days again. Doing smoother, you know, with the up and down. But I'm going to do it both ways. Up and down the phone with the light in the other side, and then going in the other side and raising and lowering the light also.
Wow, nice.
But remember, you need a lot of contraptions like levels and lasers and fine-tuned tools to make sure the floor is straight, right?
You don't fall off that curve. It must be a severe curve.
Well, some of these attempts that are on screen now are done by ballers.
Yeah.
So, you know.
See? The curvature is right there.
Any obstructions curve.
Yeah. It just proves that if you look carefully enough, if you look close enough to the ground, you will see the curvature. That's what they think. Literally.
I gave that footage to Flat Earth Audio, and I was like, can you stabilise this? And every time previous, he's just been like, yeah, no problem. Oh, anything you like. He got back to me after that footage. I'm not going to name who made it. And he's like, he says, I can't even do the end bit. Yes. Here we go. This is Travis. There you go. See that?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's ace. And on the way back up, it gets much brighter and bigger because it's at that diffraction limit. It's splitting into two. It's basically mirroring below itself. We see this all the time.
And you know what Alan B would say? It's just a smudge.
Just a smudge. But that's what we're looking at. That's the whole point of the stuff we're looking at. We're looking at stuff at the diffraction limit. Yes, it is just a smudge. We're talking about the stuff that's limiting itself down to no pixels, 0 resolution. Yeah, we're talking about fuzzy stuff right in the distance. Look at it. This is at full, without me zooming in artificially after the fact. You can hardly see Travis, let alone his torch.
And Travis cut up that video right on time when people was throwing quarters at him. Like, here, buy you something to eat.
See some great mirroring again at the limit of angle.
Shout out to Alki.
No, believe me, I have to review many videos that I have taken on the cars that we're driving and in the lights. I zoom in very far away in the distance and I see all this mirroring going on in the cars, and you can see the cars hovering and stuff. I haven't picked anything specifically yet, but I'm gonna start just taking little snippets of footage that I have. Just is interesting to look at the effects in the distance.
A little gap after the show ends in case you joined late. Then this show gets rebroadcast along with the pre-show on my second channel, Nathan Oakley. So I do publish the link to that rebroadcast that goes out once both the live shows have ended. So I normally stick it in the chat for the people watching on the second show. So I know about 5 minutes from now we'll round out this show for a 5-minute break. So you
look at the lights on the ceiling on the roof. I mean, as they appear to go down, and then the floor appears to go up. It's just not long distance enough. But if it was a longer distance, the light would just disappear at the end in the line where they meet. You know, pretty cool. Pure perspective.
This was the first one. This was the first demo you did. You were the first to do this. I remember my heart skipping a little beat when I saw this for the first time because I watched it and it's a good few minutes. I'm not sure if I sped this up or not, but it's hard to see what's going on and you mislead the audience. So you walk down a few paces and then lift your trouser leg. And at the time we'd been discussing people's shoes disappearing. So my mind was led to think that you're going to walk down there and just walk back again. So when you got down there, I was like, what's he doing with his phone? And then when the light disappeared, I was like, oh, that's so ace.
Yeah, I thought I had my white socks on, and then I lift my pants, and I'm like, damn it, I got the black socks on. It's not going to be visible. Then as I was walking, I said, I got to put something, and then I got the phone in my pocket. It was like really organic. It happened, improvised. Cool stuff.
It does do it still on your footage. It does split into two, but it's... I mean, I slowed that down and then slowed it down again. It's just not long enough. You know, it happens for a fraction. It's probably one frame. It just gets that much brighter. But you couldn't... whereas when I slowed down, it did it then. But when I did it on Travis's, you could really see it splitting into two lights and then disappearing. And then when it comes back up again, you get two lights and then it goes back into one and then it goes up. There we go. Stuff.
Very, very cool.
Loads of people did them though. I seem to remember a few people doing similar observations. Well, that's what this playlist is, you know, it's all of the people's material. Yeah, this is Angle of Attack playlist, which is on main channel Nathan Oakley 1980. Get out.
Yeah, you can see in the right hand side in the legs on the shelf, you know, on the whole aisle, they start to disappear as they go away.
And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible, and of course a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. If you hated the show, then smash the dislike button, then smash it again. But if you like the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!